This is Dragonfruit by Makiia Lucier. We're reading chapter 23. That evening, they made camp in a grove of mango trees. It was a good spot, close enough to the Nomi to smell the sea-salted waves, far enough away to flee inland should the guards by the shore call a warning. 10 open-air pavilions offer shelter from sun and rain. They had been built around a common area, one with fire pits and stacks of chopped wood left behind by fellow travelers. Each pavilion was small but comfortable, with space for 4 sleeping mats. Honolly shared hers with Rosamie. How are you not frightened? Honolly knelt on her mat, rummaging through a jewelry box made of inlaid pearl. You didn't even scream. I must have screamed enough for the both of us. You did, Honolly told her, earning a dirty look in response. She sat cross-legged on her own mat, pulling a comb through her damp hair, or trying to. It felt like there were knots upon knots, and the constant yanking and tugging was giving her a headache. The sun had nearly gone, but the cooking fire and torchlight cut through the gathering darkness. From where she sat, Honolly could see the entire camp. Those who were not settling into their own pavilions sat by the fire, where, by the look and smell of things, supper was nearly ready. They had just returned from nearby bathing pools. Honolly had changed into a pale blue skirt and blouse, clean and crisp. Dear Penina. Honolly did not know how she had found clothing that fit her so well, so quickly. Rosamie also wore a skirt and blouse in white. Unlike Honolly, she wore jewelry, plenty of it. Gold glinted at her wrists and ears and ankle, along with a shell choker around her throat. Well, Rosamie pressed, why weren't you scared? To Honolly, the answer was simple. He didn't feel dangerous to me. It's a sea dragon. Rosamie closed the box with a snap. Aren't all sea dragons dangerous? They're not. It would be like saying, aren't all men dangerous? The look Rosamie gave her was withering. It's not the same thing at all, Lady Honolly. How is it different? Honolly countered. A man will say I'm hungry and kill a chicken. She pointed her comb at the open fire where chickens and pigs turned slowly on their spit. No one ever feels too badly for the chicken. When a sea dragon is hungry, it will hunt an octopus or a whale or sink a ship because to them humans are food. But I've never seen one terrorize for the sake of terrorizing the way a cat sometimes does. That is not in its nature. You were not the one swallowed by a sea dragon, which Rosamie had been only yesterday. We heard her first, Holly reminded her. There was a spear in her neck. She was dying. What would you have done in her place if you were cornered and scared? Rosamie regarded her for a long moment. You're very odd, she said finally. I wonder if that's why Prince Samati likes you so much. He's drawn to strange women. Holly laughed. And you're drawn to insults because you know I'm right. Oh, hush, and give me that. Rosamie came over and snatched the comb away before kneeling on the mat behind her. Honolly braced for a vicious hair pulling, but Rosamie was surprisingly gentle, patiently unraveling the knots and tangles. My uncle says you work for some sort of school. Does that mean you're poor? Honolly had just begun to think she liked Lady Rosamie of Salamaceda, despite everything, but at her question the feeling went away. Poor? Yours is one of Tamarin's original families, Rosamie said, as if Honolly were unaware of her own family history. But you work for your supper, and even though you've returned home, you're not wearing a single piece of jewelry. Even the apprentices wear gold. They watched 2 girls walk by the pavilion, hands over their mouths and giggling over some shared amusement. One was an apprentice in the menagerie. The other labored for cook. Gold hoops gleamed in their ears. I lost my home, Honolly said, and felt an ache in her chest. She had never said so out loud before. Hearing it spoken made it feel real. That could not be undone. It's being used for important guests. I suppose the gold is gone too. I haven't asked. The comb stilled. Honolly turned her head to the side in question. Our pavilion is near the Queen's, Rosamie said. The room I'm in has a most absurd bed. The headboard and posts are curved with sea dragons. Honolly finished with a faint smile. My father had it made for me. Papa. Honolly would not wish away a single memory of him, only the hurt that came with such memories. Will you bring him home? Rosamie asked quietly. Your father? Honolly did not understand the question. How could she? He's buried on Raka, in a foreigner's graveyard, far from the island of his birth. Rosamie worked on another knot. My mother died in Esperanza. We had gone to seek care for her with a special doctor there. My island's customs are like yours, like Raka's. Our dead must be buried immediately. But with my mother's mother, the elders made an exception. What sort of exception? I was allowed to have her ashes brought home for burial. It's how it was how I met William and his brother. We were on the same ship. They allowed a cremation? Burning the dead was not their way. I was shocked too, but I had to ask. My mother was an islander, a daughter of the Nomi. It snows on Esperanza. I couldn't leave her there in the cold. Rosamie pulled the comb through Hanalie's hair without it catching on a single snarl. I'm sorry I called you odd. Hannalie looked over her shoulder, smiling. When she turned around, Sam was there standing by the steps. His hair was damp, and he had exchanged his dusty soldier's uniform for a clean one. A gold cuff gleamed around his upper arm. He gave a little bow. Hannalie, Lady Rosamie, how is your pavilion? Comfortable enough? Rosamie leaned around Hannalie to be with him. As comfortable as home, thank you for the netting. While they had gone to bathe, the mosquito net had been set up over their mats, propped up in the center by a wooden pole. For now, the gauzy fabric was rolled back, secured to the pole with ribbons. Before they slept, it would be unfurled, the edges tied to loops on the mat's corners. A quick glance at the other pavilions showed Hannalie that theirs was the only one with a pole and net. Tamarins and mosquitoes are vicious, especially once the sun sets. Sam looked over at Hannalie, who said, Thank you for the netting, but I'm going to sleep on the beach tonight. The beach? A frown creased his brow. Why? To help with the watch. I might know before the others if there's danger. You might, or you might not. It's safer for you here. Sam. What if you're wrong? Sam asked. How do I tell my grandmother I let you become fish food? I'm sorry, he added for Rosamie's benefit. I didn't mean to bring back bad memories. Oh. Rosamie's eyes darted back and forth between them. Please don't apologize. Feeling thwarted, Hannalie said under her breath, A sea dragon is not a fish. I know it's not a fish, Hannalie, came Sam's testy response. Look over there, Rosamie said brightly. Supper's ready. I'll just go. I'm going. She returned the comb to Hannalie and hurried to the stairs, leather sandals tapping lightly against wood. Sam helped her down the shallow steps, earning another smile in return. Once she'd gone, Sam commented, You made another friend. That's two today. Maybe. Hannalie could usually tell when someone did not like her, but she did not know what to make of King Nakoro's prickly niece, who was sometimes kind and sometimes not. You don't have to keep scowling. I'll keep away from the water. Good. Sam leaned against a column. And someone should tell you you're not poor. Startled, Hannalie glanced over at the open fire, where Rosamie had settled beside William and Jajamar. How long were you standing there? Have you forgotten our laws? Sam asked, ignoring her question. When your father married your mother, everything he owned became hers. Upon her passing, it became yours. Since you personally committed no offense to the crown, and because there's no confirmation of your death, it could not be touched. Hannalie saw his lips move and heard his words. Still she asked, What does that mean? That the pavilion in the city is yours to do with as you like, Sam told her. The same with your homes in the mountains and in the south. They have been looked after. You have your cinnamon shares. The profits from those are managed by my grandmother's own spice masters. Your personal belongings, including all jewelry, are in a vault. You're not poor, Hannalie. You have more gold than I do. In her wildest imaginings, she had not thought her possessions would be kept for her, especially the pavilion in the city where she had spent most of the time. The pavilion was hers. That is good news, she managed. Glaring at her, he said, It's excellent news. Then why are you upset? I'm not. You are. Sam trailed off, realizing. I am. They looked at each other across the pavilion. Hannalie brushed her skirts to one side, making room for him on the mat. He came over and settled beside her, legs drawn up, elbows on knees. He did not speak right away, and Hannalie did not press him. Conversation and laughter drifted over from the fire, mingling with the sound of sand crickets. I hate that you've been hungry, Sam said at last, that you've gone without when you did not have to. I feel the same about you. Sam turned his head, looked at her. I've never gone hungry. Not for food, but maybe for other things. I didn't realize it yesterday, but most of the people by the lagoon, they weren't from here. They were visitors, like Lady Rosamie and Lord William. Sam, where is everyone? He should have been surrounded by friends, young men and women who had grown up alongside him in the royal court. They had been Hanalie's friends too. Saboyas and Hori, Tupai and Fian, so many others. She had not seen them by the shore or in the Queen's pavilion, and though Hannalie had asked him where everyone was, she already knew the answer. To the adored child send them on journeys, an old Tamarindi saying. It was a tradition among families that once a daughter or son turned 18, they would travel beyond the Tamarindi archipelago. Most had already done so, but this time it would be without strict parental supervision. A chance to see the Nomi and the oversea kingdoms as men and women, no longer children. The journey usually lasted 6 to 12 months, sometimes longer. Sam's friends had already left. He should have gone with them. Sam did not meet her eyes. They're traveling, Hannalie said quietly. But not you? How can I leave, Hannah? I'm needed at home. He was her old friend, and she had found herself shifting closer so that her arm touched his. You won't always be, not as much. When your mother is better, where will you go first? I haven't thought about it. Liar. She heard the smile in his voice. I have a list, he admitted. It's a long one. When my mother is better. The sound of something breaking brought her head off his shoulder. They looked to the fire. Liko had jumped to her feet with a cry. She was slapping at her skin, her arms and chest, the back of her neck. Hey! Bayani had also leapt to his feet. What's you, Liko? What's happening? Sam Hanali asked. I don't know. Sam pulled Hanali to her feet. Within moments they were at the fire. Bugs! Liko spun like a fire dancer. She slapped at her skin. They're everywhere! She must have flung aside her plate. Food had gone all over the place, mostly on Bayani. His tunic was covered in sauce, but also on Rosamie and William, who picked bits of chicken from their clothing and hair. Hanali looked at Liko's arms, realizing with a start what she was looking at. Move back, Sam said to the others. Liko, stop! Liko did as she was told, though her eyes were panicked. She held out both arms so they could all see the markings that raced up one arm and down the other. It's small. Jajamar peered over Sam's shoulder. Is it a cockroach? It looks like a cockroach. My marking is a cockroach? Liko squeezed her eyes shut. Jajamar, Sam said. Hanali stepped around Sam, smiling. Liko, open your eyes. Look, it's a fire maiden, a firefly. Liko opened her eyes just as the firefly rose from her skin, a tattoo transformed into a living, sparking creature. There were oohs and ahs and startled laughs as the lone firefly turned into two, doubling and tripling until dozens swooped among them. Hanali held out a finger. A firefly landed on the very tip, a tiny light twinkling in and out. Rosamie came over to inspect. But is it real or an illusion? It's real, Hanali said. Hold out your hand. When Rosamie did, the firefly fluttered from Hanali's finger to hers. They laughed. A fire maiden. Liko's expression was full of wonder. It feels strange under my skin. Like bugs crawling, Sam said with a smile. I remember. I remember, too. Cook sat by the fire with Katamara. On his arm was the image of a cocoa bird. Soon you won't notice. By then, hundreds of fireflies lit the night sky. Bayani flapped his hands about, shooing away the ones that flew too close to the flames. Liko asked, How do I make it stop? Hold out your hand, Sam instructed, and call it back. It's your marking. You tell it what to do. It will listen? His reply was rueful. Most of the time. Liko turned in a slow circle, taking everything in. She held out a hand and said, Come back? In an instant, all but one firefly vanished. It returned to Liko's wrist, its light dimmed, and it transformed into a simple tattoo, flat and unmoving. Rosamie dropped her hand, disappointed. You don't think it's too small? Liko asked, studying her wrist. Lord Isco has a shark. The queen has a spider, Sam reminded her, and saw her expression clear. It's an honorable marking, Liko. Useful, too, and a good one to have around in the dark. Once the excitement died down, supper continued around the fire. Only Liko was absent. She sat on the steps of her pavilion, sparks of light flitting about her head. Here by the fire, the conversation flowed freely. William laughed at something Jajamar said. They pored over what looked to be some sort of list. Rosamie's empty plate lay at her feet. Her face was tipped toward the darkening sky. She preferred the night, Hanali was coming to realize, happier beneath the moon than the sun. Katamara shared a pipe with Cook and some of the guards. They passed it back and forth, cheeks puffed out like apples from the smoke. The chatter dipped as a colony of bats broke through the trees, wings flapping. Beside Hanali, Sam searched the sky, looking for one bat in particular. When do you expect him? Hanali asked. Tonight? Tonight's too soon. Tomorrow, hopefully. His smile was slight. I'm used to having him close. William looked over when he heard Fetu's name. They didn't say his name. May I ask a question, Prince Samati, about your bat? Yes. Williams set his list aside, half sitting on it to keep it from blowing away. Well, we're trying to find the Dragonfruit to save your mother, who I very much look forward to meeting. But when she's well, won't she want her marking back? William looked around as Jajamar nudged him, and the others turned his way. He added hastily, I'm terribly sorry. That was nosy, wasn't it? My sister says I should count to 50 before I speak. No, it's a good question. Sam reached for his cup. My mother will want Fatu back. I've always known it. He has never been mine to keep. Won't you miss him? Very much, Sam said, but he won't be far away. Rosamie leaned around haughtily to ask, Do you think you'll have a marking of your own, Prince Samati? No, lady, Sam said with certainty. Markings usually skip a generation in the male line of my family. My father had one. If I have a son, it's likely he'll have one too. Hanali picked at her supper. No markings had appeared on Hanali's mother, but her father's had been a shark. just like Lord Eastcote's. As a small girl, she had ridden on the back of her father's hammerhead, laughing, arms clutched around a fin as it whisked around the shallows. It was one of her earliest memories and one of her happiest. Are the types of markings hereditary? William asked. Do the same ones keep turning up in the same family? Sometimes, Sam answered. I don't remember there ever being a firefly in Lico's family, but there are plenty of spiders in mine. He reached into his pouch and set Viti free, tossing her onto the grass. She sat there beside his boot, eyes blinking, taking everything in. It's a lucky marking for the queen to have. Because of how big they can get? Sam asked. That, Sam agreed, and because they sense danger. Ill intent, malice, eyes widen. You mean Viti can tell if someone means you harm? Sometimes, yes. Jajamar stood, holding his empty plate. He looked down at William and announced, Tree climbing. I beg your pardon? Your list, Jajamar reminded him. Didn't you say you wanted to learn how to climb a tree? William's expression cleared. Yes, of course. It's number 3 on my list. There was a scar on Jajammar's neck. Huntley hadn't noticed it until now. Curious, she leaned forward for a closer look, but he turned aside, pointing to some coconut trees not too far away. Beyond the mango grove. Those are good for learning, Jajamar said. They're not too big, not too small. I'll get a torch. You mean now? William pushed his spectacles higher on the bridge of his nose. We won't have time tomorrow, Jajamar said with a shrug. It's not hard. You just need strong arms and firm knees. Well, all right then. William got to his feet, smiling. I'll give it a go, though I have neither of those. Rosamie brushed at her skirt. I'm coming with you to supervise. Do you know how to climb trees, Rosamie? William said with some surprise. Every islander does, William. I think it's law. I should go too, Prince Samati. Bayani rose, drumstick in hand, in case anyone needs catching. Uh, Sam eyed Bayani and the others who were suddenly eager to finish their meal and watched William try his hand at tree climbing. In no time at all, the campfire had cleared. Only Hanali, Sam, and Viti remained, and Katamara, who now had the pipe all to himself. Hanali reached for Viti and set the spider on her knee. That was strange. Sam watched the torches disappear into the trees. Climbing a tree is not that interesting. They looked at one another, then at Viti, then Katamara, who blew smoke into the air. That is the trouble with a quest like yours, young prince. What do you mean? Sam asked. Katamara shrugged. There are only 2 eggs left, and you're not the only one here with a mother. The old man puffed on his pipe, smoke drifting ever slowly toward the heavens.